Hey everyone! Today I'm going to be working on a winter wreath for the month of January. After Christmas, I need a wreath to hang up between Christmas and Valentine's Day. So I'm making a wintry wreath. I have these picks that I got from Hobby Lobby. And then I'm going to be using two different kinds of mesh. I have a navy blue metallic and this jute mesh that has like a snowdrift. And I'm going to start with just 3 pieces of blue that are 24 inches each and 2 pieces of the natural at 24 inches because I'm just going to be using it basically underneath the greenery. So, since I have 3 pieces of this and 2 pieces of this, I'm going to be putting them on the wreath staggered like this. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to be ruffling them. And I'm going to be using wire to attach them. So we have available on our website this floral wrapped wire. So I'm going to be ruffling and attaching them directly to the grapevine. Let me grab my wire real quick. All right. Our wire that we sell, they're 1 yard pieces. So I'm going to be cutting them in half, and then with each half piece, I'm going to line up the 2 ends and fold it so that I have a little loop in the center because I'm going to use it to slip knot around the mesh so that I could just tie it directly onto the wreath. Okay, so when I ruffle the mesh, I always roll this cut edge so that it's not showing and it helps it not fray. So you just want to give that just a light roll, and then almost like an accordion, you just kind of ruffle the mesh up, down, and you want to just try and stay in the center of the mesh. You don't want to kind of let the mesh get crooked. You want to keep your ruffles in the center of it, and then when I get close to this other end, I'm going to roll that under also and just bring it into the middle. So you have a ruffle. I find my wire blends in with my table. So I'm going to use the wire to slip knot around it. Just going to do a single knot so it doesn't go anywhere. And then I'm going to set it aside for now. I'm going to ruffle all of these and then I'm going to attach them onto my wreath. So I'm just going to set it there and we'll tie it on later. We'll do another ruffle, roll it, gather it, and roll this end under. Get another piece of wire. Slip knot, tie. Set it aside. So I'm just going to continue with this step till all 5 pieces are done. Alright, so now that I have all of my pieces ruffled, I'm going to start attaching them to my grapevine. I am only going to be mainly keeping all of my stuff on this side. So I'm just going to pick a spot near the top and I'm just going to tie it around the whole frame. Let me flip it over so you can see. Do it nice and snug so it doesn't move. I'm just going to do a double knot and then I'll cut that off later. Get my next piece. And I want them fairly close. I don't want a lot of grapevine showing in between. You also could use like long pipe cleaners for this part if you wanted. The wire is much easier for me to use. When you add these on, you want to make sure they're about evenly spaced. You don't want two that are close together and then one that's farther down. And I'm just starting with 5, and if I end up wanting to add more later, I'll just cut more pieces. Okay, so now I'm going to be adding these picks in. I'm going to kind of stab them through to the grapevine and put a little hot glue on them first, so when I stick them in, it kind of hardens into place. First, I'm going to make sure I know where I want them to go. I don't want the mesh showing a lot. Let's see if I can make this easier for you to see. The mesh is kind of there to help hold these a little bit forward away from the wreath. Okay, so there. So I'm putting the glue kind of towards the top, well, the bottom of the bristles, but the top of the little stem. That way when I poke it in, that's the part that's gluing. Just gonna let that kind of settle for a minute. And I'll be adding more glue at the end when I kind of shake it a little bit, and if it wiggles too much, I'll glue it more. And let me show you what the back looks like. So I have this stem just poking through right there. I'm gonna hold it and kind of bend this wire. So it's not sticking straight out. And I'm even going to take a little piece of my wire just to tie around the bottom of the stem to secure it a little bit more. I love that these are all bendable. I can bend it into place where I want it. Spread everything out. Alright, first pick done. Next, and I want the mesh kind of showing a little, but not too much. So this one I'm probably going to poke in right there so that this mesh is kind of in between them. If that makes sense? with these things, there's no way to be perfectly consistent with every single wreath. You just have to kind of twist it and play with each one as you put the picks in and the mesh, and you kind of fix it as you go, and you build on it and you build on it. I'm going to bend that stem down. At the end, I'll probably anchor them better in the back. Next, these picks are just so easy to use. I love them. I think I want a little bit more height, so I'm going to stab this one kind of underneath. I'm going to put it underneath this mesh, so it's kind of peeking out the back. This is the piece that would probably end up kind of flopping. So I'm going to make sure it gets glued better, because it is in the back. So I'm just going to add a good amount of glue. Hot glue works like a charm. I'm just going to let that sit for a second. Burn myself. So that's in the back, in the grapevine, right underneath the mesh. So it just makes the wreath, it's very hard to tell, but if I angle it, it brings the height up this way, because I like to have a vertical, like, focal point down the wreath. Okay. Next, these three I had kind of going upward. I'm going to do one more that's at an upward angle, and then I'm going to switch and do the rest ones coming at a downward angle. And this one that I move up, probably I'll spike these ones just out to the side, because I want it to slowly start changing directions. This is a super easy way to make a beautiful wreath if you don't have like a lot of mesh or a lot of ribbon, because it's mainly greenery, and then you just have these cute little touches of color in between. Bend that stem in the back a little. I love it already. Let's move it forward. I will probably end up tying this tighter at the end. Okay, so I brought these ones kind of poking outward, so now I'm going to begin placing these ones in downward. And I want to go under this one and kind of over this one. So I'm just going to find a little gap, stab it through. And let the glue dry for a little bit. I need to go back to Hobby Lobby and see if they have more of these. These are amazing because each individual branch is bendable. So it is making it amazing to work with. Alright, I got one more pick and I'm going to put it right over this last blue piece. amazing. It looks so much bigger in person. It's very hard to tell on the video. When I get it hanging on my door, I'll upload pictures. Okay, so my favorite part of this wreath are these navy blue sequins like baubles I made. So I just went to Joann's and got a whole bunch of different fabrics, and then let me see if I can find some. I got these clear like ornament balls you can put together, and then I covered them in the fabric, and I attached like a thin ribbon. You could also use wire. And I'm just going to put these in and tie them in. And it's easier for me to add them in now than after the ribbon. I'm gonna make the ribbon just kind of work around them. So I'm just gonna shimmy the ribbon towards the back of the wreath so that I can tie it around the frame just like I did the mesh. Carefully flip this over. And this I'm probably gonna knot it like 3 or 4 times, and I'm gonna do it nice and tight. I do not want this like moving around at all. So I cut that. Oh, love it. I'm gonna put one towards the bottom, and I'm gonna probably do one right here towards the top. Get that ribbon all the way to the bottom. Just gotta weave it through stuff. Alright, flip it over carefully, and I'm gonna tie it. And then the next step is gonna be adding the bow. So I'll make a bow, and then if needed, I'll add just a little ribbon here and there to kind of fill in any gaps that there might be. So there is that. Oh my goodness, I love it. All right, so we're gonna work on the bow next, and then ribbon, and we'll be done. Okay, so for my bow, I'm starting with 1.5 inch navy wired ribbon. I measured out how long I want the tail to be because I'm gonna weave it in and out of the wreath. And right now I'm just making 2 small loops and then leaving another strand going up the wreath that's gonna be long. I'm tying the bow with a piece of floral wire. And I'm going to set it down. I'm gonna grab the next ribbon, which is an ivory wired ribbon. I'm gonna do the tail the same length, and I'm gonna make the loops slightly bigger than the first layer. And then I'm going to kind of measure out, leave enough for a tail going up again. I'm gonna be tying this directly onto the back of that first layer that I had made. I'm gonna trim the ribbon, and I'm going to use the wire to just tie this directly onto my wreath. I'm putting the bow towards the center, and then I'm going to be kind of weaving the ribbon tails, one going down the wreath and one going up the wreath from the bow. So I'm going to layer the navy ribbon directly on top of my ivory ribbon, and I'm going to figure out kind of how big of a loop I want, and I'm going to twist and add a piece of floral wire, and I'm going to kind of tuck it down into the greenery and use that wire to tie it onto my grapevine wreath. So I'm just going to take the wire and kind of weave it through a couple of the branches and then just tie it. And then for the tails, I'm just going to do a quick dovetail cut, round it out a little bit, and then I'm going to work on the other tail that's going up the wreath. I'm going to do the same thing I did to the bottom tail. I'm going to stack the two ribbons, one right on top of the other. I'm going to figure out how big of a loop I want and where to like tuck the tail into, and then I'm going to attach a piece of wire again and tie that part to my grapevine wreath. Now this was just like a 2-loop simple style bow. You definitely can do any type of bow you want. I just like it being smaller and just having the tails going up and down just for the length of the design. All right, I'm going to trim these tails. And I move the branches around so the ribbon appears to kind of be weaving in and out more. For the next step, I have these amazing ribbon scraps that I refuse to throw away. I'm going to be using them to fill in any gaps and kind of even out my design. So I'm going to just create like a single little loop on one side and leave one tail, and I'm going to bunch it, and then I'm going to do the same thing to my navy blue ribbon, and I'm going to combine them. It gives it like a look of like a small bow, but it really helps fill in any gaps. So I'm going to put them together. I'm going to tie them with a piece of floral wire. And then I'm going to kind of tuck them pretty far in to the greenery so they're just kind of peeking out. So again, I'm just going to take the wire and go through a couple branches of the wreath and tie it on. And I'm going to figure out how long I want the tails to be, and then I'm going to trim those. And then I'm going to do the same thing in the bottom. So I'm just folding over one end to create a little loop, pinching it together, and do the same thing to the blue. I'm going to flip-flop the ribbon. That way the blue is on the opposite side of the natural than I did on the top. That's just my OCD speaking. You definitely don't have to do that. So I'm just gonna tuck it in there, tie it to the wreath, and then again I'll just trim my tails the length that I want, and I'll be finished. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more wreath making videos, bow making videos, and visit our website, which is shopdesignerdiy.com, for all of your ribbon, mesh, signs. We also have kits. But yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day.